Oh, yeah. That's it. Okay, okay, okay. Very blessed, blessed. Good night to you all. Good morning to you who are receiving me in the United Kingdom, to those who are receiving me in Europe, uh, to those who are receiving me in the Corporation of Guyana, and all the corporations around the world. A very pleasant good night to you. To those who are now joining, share the light, share the light, share the light, share the light. To those who are now receiving the notifications, share the light. And the reason why I'm coming on this way is because I need to have a conversation with you and politics. I think it is very best and wise of me to reason with you about what certain discoveries of about the church and politics. Before I start, may I say Islam to you, my Moorish brothers and sisters. Islam to you, Moors. Good night to those who are joining. Share the light. Welcome you to this Dr. Matthews show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. I know there are lots of you who are on Instagram who are receiving me presently. So I encourage you to share the live. I know that it's something constant that I have to keep on doing, but I'm live now on Instagram. You can go there, you can check my page, like you can check the Facebook and the YouTube page, and uh, you can see follow up uh, shows that I had before and present. So I want to say to you, share the live as you come in, and I want to have very typical and informative discussion with you. Join this discourse if you can. I don't mind. But I want to have this discourse with you. It's very informative, and it's something that we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about. We should never be ashamed to talk about it. We should never be ashamed to have this discourse about the church and about politics. It is something that we must be strongly endeavor to talk about. Now, my page has, which is the Facebook page. I don't know much about the YouTube or Instagram, but my Facebook page has lots of followers who are Christian. So I want to have this discourse with you because I want you to comprehend where you are, where you need to comprehend where you are. Now, I want to get down into details, but I want you to go and look up certain things as I discuss here because I mightn't really talk about the date, but I can talk about the event. The events is easy for you to find on Facebook. You can Google it. You can take part in doing your own research. You can do it with your family and so on and so forth. Now, how did the church get involved into politics? Before the before the turn of the 17th century, excuse me, before the turn of the 17th century, the church was involved. The church was the leaders of these European colonizers. In other words, the kings or queens, you name it, France, England, places that had these royalties, the church were more or less involved in the ordination of these royalties to the throne. They are the ones who the kings and queens would have received their instructions from. Uh, the church were heavily involved in everything, in popularization and civilization, as one may say. The church was the one who has produced civilization so as a new world order. And civilization means military rule. That's what civilization means. So I wanted to check up these things. Those who can come on the comment section, I don't have a problem. Hold on. Yes, you can tap on the comment section and yes, and we can have your live. As a matter of fact, I can read what you're commenting on. Now, there was the Council of Nicaea. This council took place in the late 1800s. And the Council of Nicaea was based upon things that are not deeming to be good. You had the Protestants and you had the priests in colonies that were doing their own style of worshiping of who they preserve or presume the Almighty to create it to be. The Council of Nicaea also came together to take the spirituality of the indigenous people and turned it into a religion. Because what was happening really, King James wasn't really approving of their lifestyle. That was what you would have called the Dark Ages. You normally hear some historians refer to certain times as the Dark Ages. Uh, they were killing each other, really. The priests and the Protestants, they were killing each other, and they were winding each other up in the middle of the streets in the darkness of night, tying them to stake and burning them. What had happened in that kind of way is that the Council of Nicaea came together and they had a discourse not only to create a Bible, but to find something that the spirituality of the people can rely upon. or relay upon. And that's why you find that they took the the teachings of the spirituality, of a spirituality of a prophet or a teacher that they would have referred to as Yahweh bin Yahweh, which is now pronounced these days as Jesus Christ. Now, may I remind you, what I'm speaking here is basically upon true culture, nothing more, and a spirituality of a people, not a religion. So the church realized that there's this growing concept of spirituality and teachings and a religious comprehension of the teachings. So they want to get involved in. So what had happened, they would have approached King James, or King James would have approached them pertaining to the derelict way of life. And thus came the creation of one scripture. Not only one scripture, but thus came the creation of Jesus Christ, which in Spanish means Jesus Cristo. And the reason why Jesus Cristo was being brought in general, because at that time it was the Spanish conquest who was really in charge of conquering all over the place. They were conquering the Americas at that time, and they were very uh, successful in it, in all these wars that they had. So it was brought about because at that time a lot of people named Jesus. And in the continent of which is Kemet or Kush, there was known as the teachings of Christ, which is a king. So you brought both of them together because they were all over. They were in Africa studying Egyptian about the spirituality of those together, confining the word Jesus Christ, Jesus the Christ, which most of us say Jesus Christ. And not only that, Michelangelo painted a portrait of himself, and thus painted a portrait of himself. Yes, we use the word Michelangelo as Michael the Archangel, and I'm bringing about the indoctrination process so you can get to comprehend. And thus is the creation of Jesus Christ, or Jesus the Christ. What the church said, it was the European version of a portrait, not a picture of Jesus the Christ. So what has happened and keep on happening after then, you check in every continent they went to colonize, they sent missionaries. Missionaries to subdue you spiritually to the conquest of the time or the new world order. And the reason why I'm profoundly speaking on such a catastrophic event that happened in our time as a people, because you find that the church combined themselves not only as colonizers with the kings and queens and politicians, but to erase the history of the first peoples. Brothers and sisters, Genesis came about in the middle 18 to the late 1800s. Nothing more. Revelation came about the same time. As a matter of fact, the creation of the word of the Bible, and if you check the etymology of the word Bible, it's a Greek word that merely means the gathering of information. That's what it means. That's why when you open the Bible and you read it, it says it's a book of letters, epistles, uh, journals, and so on and so forth. It's a combination of things that were written that people would have suggested or people would have interpreted. That's what it means. Nothing more else. So most of us run around the place to say, oh, the Bible is the word of God. Indeed, you're right. To those who are listening, of a democratic, that's what God means. So there's no, and I'm breaking it down into syllables to those who are looking to not only comprehend, but can overstand or understand. So when we say it is the word of God, you're correct, because who is the head of the government of the democratic system? The king, the queen, and the church. Or the church, the king, and the queen, or whichever one rules at that particular time. Those are God. And those who fall under them, which are the nobles, are Lord. That's why when you read the Bible, it talks about two things. It talks about God the Father, which is either the Pope, the King, or the Queen, right? God the Son, which talks about Jesus Christus, and they talk about Lord. The Holy Spirit, it is the spiritual aspect that they gotten as a combination of letters and epistles. Talks about the spirituality of man that would have written to the other fellow beings. Like, I'm going to give you a simple example. They talk about Moses in those days. Went up to Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments. In Egypt, mind you. But in those days that they talk about, before Moses and after Moses, it was the 42 confessions you had to know as an Egyptian, because that was law. 42 confessions, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not take thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. But what is happening now? We got these Bible schools and colleges that people go to study theory. And all these things are implemented, they're added into their studying, but you can't come and preach about it. So what happens after that? The church now becomes fully involved in the indoctrination process. Because when you open the book, like I had a brother told me that the name of the Almighty God is Jehovah. I don't contest what he says, but I told him, I said, find out what the name Jehovah means. He said it means Almighty God. I said, boy, you got to comprehend that any deity can become a god, or anybody can refer to any deity as a god. So, what you need to find out is what the name Jehovah means. And he asked me what it means. And I said, well, Jehovah means God of war. You go research it. Come back to me. Then you'll realize names were given for certain gods. Jehovah was one of them. When you want to do war, the Europeans would have called out upon the name Jehovah because they recommend that spirituality deity. The name of that spiritual deity is the God of war. Then if you look upon the story of the Immaculate Conception, then you realize that came out from Egypt, talk about Isis and her son, Heru. And most people who knows the story will know that the king, brother, killed him, dismembered his body into 14 parts. His wife, who was Isis, came, searched his body, found it, assembled it back, but in 13 parts, she found 13 parts of it. And in the middle of the night, his spirit came and overcome her, and she conceived the Son, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Then when you read that Egyptian story, it's a spirituality. Then you comprehend where the story of the Immaculate Conception comes from. And why am I talking all these things? Because religion is a process, it's a continuous indoctrination and a continuous enslavement of a people mentally. Because they will take you and they will tell you, do you believe? Do you believe in Jesus the Christ? Most of us will say yes. But if you check the etymology of the word believe, you realize believe means to doubt. That's why you have to continuously go into church, because you still believe. But you don't know the power of saying because you believe is to continue to doubt spiritually and physically. So you go to church. The pastor or the preacher or the teacher will continue on that same process, even before the teaching, after the teaching, before the preaching, and after the preaching. Do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Yes. But if you check the meaning of the word believe, it means to doubt. The etymology of the word believe. If you comprehend what I'm saying. So they're not only using your energy, because the minute you say yes, it's an energy you push out on the word doubt, because you do not comprehend what it means. Some of us would say, well, we pass over that. We understand belief means to believe, but it is still doubt. You cannot erase doubt from belief. It's like the word black. You cannot erase black means a color to an object, which can be so it doesn't. You cannot keep saying that you're black, because you're not black. When you say that you're black and you identify yourself as a black person, well, then the civilized population will treat you as an object. They will treat you as a product. They will say to you now that you are their property. So they will now tell you that you're 2/3 of a human being. Because you're human, but you keep on saying that you're black. make you two-thirds, so you become a 14th Amendment citizen. Those who are living in the US and research what the 14th Amendment is, it means that you belong to the civilized system. You are slaves. And those other countries who uphold the democratic laws, like the country Corporation of Guyana, we uphold those democratic laws, the democracy. So our people and our citizens are slaves. So to make sure that this thing works, you have to have a religious system involved. You check any country or any corporation that pays no recognition to Christianity, see what happens in that country. You check it. You can't go there and preach it, you might die. You cannot, you might go and say something if you want, you can hold a little bottom house service, yeah, nobody even stop you. So you check it. They ain't gonna allow you. They might allow you to say something, but to expand, they're not going to allow. Because their leaders know what's happening. So what happens after then? Because Michelangelo painted a picture of himself and said, this is the portrait of Jesus Christ, Jesus the Christ. We all now come up with the belief when we look upon it, we say, oh, this is Jesus Christ. Because our parents taught us that. Our parents send us to Sunday school. Our parents send us to become Christians. We become baptized. And we become furtherly indoctrinated. Under Christianity. So now, we not only embrace the word belief, which is to doubt, because if you check the etymology, it means that. We embrace everything that comes with the ideological belief system of heavy indoctrination. So our spirituality is captured. That's in a bubble. What happens? We become more enslaved to the system. We're not only physically dead, but we are spiritually dead. And that becomes a big problem. It becomes a big problem. You ever wonder why certain religious groups fighting against each other? And they got this big war and who ain't killing and who ain't got suicidal bombing is because of one thing. Ideology, indoctrination, the capture of the mind. The people are still in bondage. They're not free. Do you check how much apologies the Roman Catholic Church did? They spread all the evangelicals and Pentecostals, Adventists, and all these different churches come under one body. Don't let me get tired. They're what you call factions of the church. They're not separate, they come under one body. As long as you're preaching and teaching the Jesus the Christ, it's one body. Do not be confused. And this Pope apologizing for so many things that happened during this. Let me show you. In 17, I think it's 41 or 44, they had a mass genocide in Australia of the Aboriginal indigenous people. and it was conducted by the church through England. A mass genocide. They had nuns, sisters who were involved in sterilizing mothers. If you know what is sterilization, it's removing it's removing the how should I put it over? It's removing the heavy pigmentation of the mothers to replace it with something light. So you call it a sterilized process, heavily chemicalized, to make the babies come out a little bit clearer in complexion. The Aboriginals were too dark. They weren't referred as human beings. The church said that. There's documentary evidence of that. And they treated them that way until to this day. The invaders and settlers of Australia have not recognized the native people. They don't. They say, oh, they're not civilized. But how can they be civilized when they keep rejecting the things that are no good to them? You went there and you gave them alcohol, and now you're complaining that they drink too much so they can't be civilized because they never seen. They weren't making alcohol. Then you took a specific island. One when they had the Second World War, I call it Second World War. It wasn't really a world war, really. Just America, Britain, and Japan was really fighting among themselves. Check what's happening. Everybody was up in arms. The church says people who are part of the colonies of Britain have to come together to fight to assist Britain with the US. And mind you, those who call themselves US citizens, United States, came from England. So don't let me get it twisted. After the US gained their independence, then the Europeans started coming to the US as settlers. But it was fractions of the British that broke off, that completed and make up the US, which was the United States. And then it was 13 states. So I just want some persons to know that the truth has to remain the truth. So the Second World War was not only financed by Britain and the church and all these other people, but it ended in such a way to send a message that nobody dares not attack the church and the colonies thereof that they embrace. 2 atomic bombs, one in Hiroshima and one in Nagasaki. The Americans dropped one and the British dropped another one. They're the only 2 countries in the world that has used nuclear weapons. And they're running around the place talking about all the people who have possession of nuclear weapons and want to use it and all these things and all these lies. So now all these evidence are now turning up because people are questioning not only the Bible, which is in a Greek, the Bible is a Greek word which means a combination of letters, a combination of information. So that's what it means, Bible, Bible. That's what it means. It's a combination of information. It does not mean the word of God. So do not be fooled with the things that these people say at the end of the day. They are being paid to say that. Let me show you another instance. No church pays tax. It's a tax-free entity. It has a duty. What is the duty? To continue to indoctrinate the masses. That's the duty. You want to show you how? Let any pastor or priest decide to go differently to what's supposed to be taught and preached in church. See what happens. Suddenly his foundation is a cult. And it's against the word of God. It is blasphemy. When we are being blasphemed against, when the church took our culture, plagiarized it, and give it back as a religion, and we go to church every day. I'm going to show you a simple example. The Book of Mormon. People ask me, why do you read the Book of Mormon? What's so different to the Book of Mormon? I said to them, it's a life and a history of a people that lived in the Americas. The word Mormon means Moors men. What it means. It talks about the Moorish culture in the Americas. But you know what? It has been taught in a European style. Read it. I challenge any one of you to read it. And you'd realize it talks about the life and the history in the Americas, especially about the Nephites and the Lamanites, the Arawaks and the Caribs. That's what it means. But they're not going to teach you that. They're not going to tell you that. They bring it to you in a different style and a different name. It was never a religion. It was a spirituality, a culture of a people. Like the cross. A lot of us wear around our necks on a piece of chain and say Jesus was crucified. No. Crucifixion, it was the Romans' electric chair. You know, the electric chair, they strap you down and they electrify you till you die. In those days, that's how the Romans kill you. They hang you, they put you on a cross and they nail your hands and your feet. They puncture in your main veins so you can bleed to death. And they puncture your side to make sure that even if, because after 3 days, they got to take you down. No, sorry, not after 3 days. After 1, yes, sometimes 3 days, yeah. They used to leave you on the cross for 3 days, and I remember. So they make sure before you come down, you're dead. But we wear it around our neck. And we believe that Jesus, the Christ, was hungry and no. You check your history. You check your history properly. It was never that way. It's a big lie. These are that they told you. As a matter of fact, just hold a minute, please. Let me get this thing sorted out. Oh, yes. Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute, please, to those who are looking. I am back. I am back. So I want to continue talking. Yes. You look at the crucifix that you wear around your neck and you call it the cross. Sorry, I had to get this plugged in because it was telling me my battery was low. Okay? And the things that we do, we send our children to be indoctrinated, and when we start teaching our children, we say, oh no, you can't do that because you know, you can send the child, you can get the child confused. I've been hearing that for the longest while right now. For the past months, I've been hearing, oh, you don't tell your children certain things, so I'm confused. That's not the fact. They're not being taught the truth. They're not being taught the truth. So we live in a European style. We're not only being indoctrinated against physically, but spiritually, and our own spirituality, our own culture has been plagiarized and given back to us in the European standard. And the thing is that all these philosophers like Plato that you go to University of Ghana and been taught so constantly about got their information from the continent of Africa in these universities. And let me show you the biggest lie. Let's take out the church a bit. Let me tell you the biggest lie. They keep telling us who lives in the Americas, that we were brought all the way from Africa as slaves to the continents of America. Now, in archaeological studies, they're digging up not only evidence that we were here thousands of years before slavery, but they cannot defute it. Every other race has an entry. Every other ethnic group has an entry on the Americans. The Europeans, we want to give them, an identification. We can't say European. We talk now. The Spanish, the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Chinese, the Amerindians. You can remember the Amerindians? Yes, to those who know, they crossed the Bering Strait when it was ice to come to the Americas in search for land. And when they came, they put up the Arawaks, who's known as the Nobids, the Nobids, and the Moors, and the Moabites. They put up with us. That is why we were in constant war with them. That's why we chased them into the Central Americas. And when they meet there, they meet with more of us. So they never had a choice. They blend in. We accepted them. Up to now, in any curriculum, they cannot give a date when we arrive, especially here in the Southwest Mexican or the South American continent. They keep giving us a date when we were bought and sold. Read your history properly, people. They keep giving us a date in a history when we were bought and sold. Nothing more else. Don't be confused. So I'm saying to you that the church and politics is one. They don't want you to go anywhere. They will keep on telling you what is expected of them to tell you. And they will do it so graciously. I don't care what nobody says here from tonight. That's the truth. And I challenge them. But before you come to me, read your history, read the historical events of the church, and don't come and tell me nonsense because you know what's happening. It's the facts are hidden in plain sight, and I keep telling you over and over on this show. The truth is right in front of you, but we got one problem. We don't like to read what people tell us that. So because we've been told that, we now become an indoctrinated people. Because they only tell me that they show me where we can go and find it. So they create a book because they know we don't like doing research. So they create a book and they say, look, read it. This is what the book says. Dictionaries, you check it. Every single year, dictionary is being upgraded because of the acceptance of the nonsense is really being taught. Dictionaries are being upgraded. Now they're trying to tell you black is a noun. You know what's the beauty of it? Check it. You know why certain countries don't hold spelling bee competitions anymore? Because the spelling bee competition teaches you about the etymology of the word. So any country who's holding spelling bee competitions are not going to do the etymology of it anymore. They're going to just tell you to spell a word and see how you know to spell. But the normal spelling bee competition will tell you how the word was made, where it derives from which language, what is the original meaning of it, and then it has been broken up in the spelling. So one can comprehend the full meaning of the word when it is being spelled. Look, I have sat down and contemplate this indoctrination process that has destroyed us for hundreds of years. Believe you me, this thing had displaced almost 6 billion people. You know, the thing is that the race that has displaced and indoctrinated the entire globe are so little, are so little. It's like the word obia. I'm still hearing it today over and over. I had to tell somebody yesterday, I said, hey, obia is a Swahilian word. It means obedience to the laws of nature. That's what it means. In Swahili, that's where the word obey derives from. That's how you get the word, I obey me when I talk to you. That's where the word obey came from, obia. It came from there. It's a Swahilian word. And that's why I keep saying over and over, English language is a combination of languages and dialects. It was created for business purposes only. English was created for commerce. Commerce means business, which is economic. That's why we Moors spoke Latin. French came and realized, oh, wow, the Spanish came and realized we spoke it, and that's what you can imagine. They didn't only take the language and the meaning of it, but do they teach it in schools? Which school teaches Latin? They ain't gonna do that because if they teach Latin, everybody gets to know the meaning of certain words that they use. Like the word conversation. You get the etymology of the word conversation. Oh my gosh, you might even want to use it. But I'm saying to you, no, unapologetically, that everything that the church teaches you is a total lie. Everything religion teaches you, the concept of the word religion was created by man. It was created in such a way to have what you call social order. That's what it was created for. Social order. I mean, I'm not saying that the church didn't have a unique manner in which they controlled social order. What I'm saying is the indoctrination process. Tell the people the truth so the people can make a choice either to stay or to move to something else. And they say church is a choice. No, it's not a choice. It belongs to the system. So you don't have a choice. When you get baptized, what they ask you for your birth certificate to make certain records. Where does the record go? So the registrar office that registers your name, that has you on a list of registrars. I know what? They use your name, Christian name. The information is there. If you name Adum Wadin, it's a Muslim name. It's there. Everything is there. That's how they identify you. Because you keep the name, but you want to remain in the system. You become part of it. You become part of the indoctrination process. Not too long the other day, I had to tell the Hindu priests that they have to be registered priests. So when they marry people, it has to be according to the law. 20 years ago, it wasn't so. On the bamboo, that was it. It was recognized according to the religion. But now that doesn't work. First, when you married bamboo, and which wasn't recognized, you had to end up going and marry the Christian way. So it can be recognized, you collect a certificate, which you call a marriage certificate. In order for it to be recognized and for you to benefit from the marriage. But they didn't tell you that when you do that according to the system, you're asking the system to monitor your life. Because you cannot afford to do that. You don't know what is it to be a married man and a married woman. The system now controls that point of view. That's why they say if you talk too hard to your wife, it's a verbal abuse. Boop, you go to jail. Well, I don't approve physical abuse. I always say that people do row, people do make noise, but there are the mature manners in which you must go about doing it. But the system doesn't have to get involved. When you go before the courts, you know why the courts pronounce judgment? Because the courts, when you go before them through the police, it tells the courts that you do not know how to solve your domestic issues. So the courts now get involved. So the church is part of it. Sometimes the same court send you back to a social worker or a counselor within your religious organization before a divorce is granted. The church is fully in charge of the political system all around the world. The church is fully in charge of all religious factions all around the world. It doesn't matter who you be. It doesn't matter who you praise, in which language, in which tongue, or which book you read from. Church controls that. Yes, sir. The church controls that. I can tell you that. That's why certain countries that holds on to socialism, which doesn't embrace religious bodies, churches get vexed. You're a terrorist group, you're a terrorist leader, you're a dictator. All these things they call you. Now, look at it. Dictators, terrorists, all these things. No, the same world order that they're now bringing out is the book from Muhammad Gaddafi. Yes, it's a book. They want to generalize one currency, one world currency, one dominant. Muhammad Gaddafi said the entire Africa must have one currency, which is gold and silver, printed on coins. Gold and silver coins, 99.9% purity. Any country want to come and do business in Africa, that's the money that they have to come and buy our currency. That's what he said. And then he said the people must be their politicians, their own politicians. They must be in charge of what happens in their country. They must have representatives that come and talk, but they must be in charge. They must hold their representative accountable. It's the same policy they know acting out on the world stage. Let me tell you something. The level of indoctrination that is around the world, Christianity is the worst. There's so much evidence. There's so much evidence on the barbaric nature of how Christianity itself aroused from the depths. It's amazing. And when I say barbaric, I mean barbaric. These people ain't saved. And look at who the put us saved. The people who does the worst atrocities ever. They put him as saints. You know. Oh my gosh. The Europeans really did a number on this globe. They really did a number. They went about and they did a number. They knew how to capture you. They know how to take away your education process and implement theirs. They know how to send a certain vibration over to you. It can decrease your energy that you live in fear. They know how to create an algorithm so you can live in, so you cannot think outside of the box. They know what to feed you. They know what kind of medication to give you. They know how to make you dependent upon them just to survive. They know all these things. Now you know, and they know you will be afraid to act because they're looking over your shoulder. You might lose your job, you might lose your pension, you might lose your own life. But hey, they spend 400 years making sacrifices so you can stay indoctrinated. So what about you now? Can't you make sacrifice to undoctrinate yourself? Can't you make sacrifices to make yourself interdependent instead of dependent? Can't you tell yourself that you know instead of telling yourself that you believe? Stop using the word faith. I have faith. Faith in what? In a belief system? That means to doubt. What do you have faith in? Check the words that you use. Find the meaning of it, how and what it was created for before it comes out of your mouth. Because when you use those words, you create energy. It's to feed your system, your spiritual self, your physical and spiritual and mental self. The words, your actions and your words is what feeds you. That's what they know, and they will never tell you that. You keep feeding yourself fear, you will live in fear. You keep feeding yourself the belief system, you live in doubt. You keep feeding yourself faith, you will live by faith. By faith of others, you surviving. So you got to pray that the Caucasian lose faith, don't lose faith in you because you know it's a polished box, slow marching and loud wailing. Because of your increased fear. And because your level of fear is so high, it is harder for you to come out of the indoctrination because you're so much afraid. You don't want anybody to align yourself to that person. Dr. Matthews-Bey, oh no. Can't nobody will see me now talking to him because they can see me the same thing. So what? What am I doing you? I'm not indoctrinating you. I'm teaching you the truth. And I'm also helping you to go and find the truth. I'm not blinding you to the truth so you can't find it. I'm teaching you and tell you where you can go and look to find it. By the way, though, I'm glad I had this time with you. It was a wonderful 1 hour. And I appreciate the time that you was in the air with me, to those who made their comments possible, so I can go back and read it and I can do some response or, to these comments. But in being here with me from time to time in what I call enforcing the Constitution. I want to say here to you tonight that tonight's show came to you with the kind compliment of Black love. Black love doesn't mean a people, it means a color of an action, which is love. And that color and love stands for liberation. So Black love, and also came to the kind of compliments including news distributors and event management service. I want to say stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, wear a mask. Don't forget it once you take it to public places. This is Dr. Matthews. To those who are looking, sorry, I forgot to say that part. Please WhatsApp call me on the number, and you can make some direct calls. I don't have a problem with direct calls. But you can also WhatsApp call me, which is much more easy for you who are living overseas. You don't have to pay that international calls. If you can afford it, no problem. And to those locally here in the Corporation of Guyana. Good night and Cheerios for now.